No violations. Okay, so we're at the second to the last lab, and this lab it gets pretty complicated because you're going to be doing some more skills, and so I want to talk about a couple kind of just generic skills, and some of these will be on the exam, so I wanted to go over this with you. If I can make that bigger, I don't think I can. Okay, we're going to just do it this way so I can get down to ArcMap in between. Nope, that's not the one I wanted. No. Here it is. There we go. I want this one. I want to talk about, this lab asks you to do a process summary, and on your final project you're going to have to turn in a process summary. So I thought I would just talk about that, and also on the next lab. And the process summary really helps you track data. It's kind of like a lab notebook, or if you were writing code or doing any kind of analysis, you would track that. You wouldn't just kind of keep it in your head. This week, this lab, we're going to do some spatial queries, which really starts to expand the use of ArcGIS and give you just a lot more bang for your buck. I'll talk again about names. I know I mentioned that in class, but I'm not sure I went over that in as much detail on the video lecture. And then where's the data? Again, that'll be another exam question, so I wanted to talk about that. So the process summary is just kind of a document that tracks what you did, so that you could hand in a one-page process summary for your final project, and I can follow what data you used, what you did to the data, and what your output was. So for example, in the lab earlier, you changed the set the projection on the fly. You're going to do that again this week. And so, you know, one of the steps might be open the properties for layers, open the projected folder, chose the appropriate projection. So just really simple. And you know, if that's something that you know how to do, I wouldn't worry about tracking that. It's the things that are new that you want to be able to track. So we're also going to ask you to do a query. And so a query might be more important because I might say what percent of forestry area was in the lane zoning table. And I want to know what you used to get that information. So you could say, you know, I selected by attributes from the lane zone. I used the land use field, and forestry was my criteria that I looked for. And so what would that look like if you were doing it in actual ArcMap? So let's say I've got the Oregon zoning, so I'm going to zoom into, right-click and zoom into Oregon here. Obviously, I'm not in an Oregon projection, but we're going to live with it for right now. And if I go up to the selection folder or tab and choose Select by Attribute, I can choose which layer I want to focus on, and I want to focus on the Oregon zoning folder. And I want to choose the land use field. So it says here, select from Oregon where, and if I double click this, it says land use. And I'm going to say land use is equal to, and then I can pick things here. So I can say, okay, land use equals forestry. So, oh, the valid was invalid, so I have to double click that. I enter that into my query base and I say okay, and boom. My selection is made. So all of those land use values that equal forestry are now showing in this cyan color. If I open my attribute table, I see here that 1,666 records, so each of these is a polygon, were selected from all of the 7,819 records. Right? So I've got all of the forestry polygons here. And now that I have square miles, I could actually click on this, and I could go to my statistics table and say, oh, if you add up all those columns, this is how many square miles of forestry land there are in Oregon. So I've just really made this a really valuable tool for searching through my data. Now, it tells me again, I have selected 1,666 records. The smallest polygon has only this area. The largest polygon has this area. Gives me the average of all of that. All right, well, this one says square miles, so that's in my field, right? So I know what that is. So that's kind of selecting by the query. So that would make sense. My process summary says I selected from this shapefile, land zone. The field I used was land use, and the thing I was looking for was forestry. So that's a good way for you to remember, wait, how did I do that? What was I looking for last time when you do that? So that might be a really simple process summary. So when we're doing SQL queries in ArcGIS, you really have to follow the syntax, means the way the words are written. I would always use the, I'm going to clear this selection, and now I'm going to zoom to states here. Okay, and turn off counties, and turn off Oregon. So if I'm looking at these states, and I'm going back here and I want to maybe find how many states are in the Northeast region. So if I've opened up my data and I've done a nice look at my attribute tables, I kind of know that, okay, oh, well, there's a nominal field. There's another nominal field, because that's just the state identification code. Subregion is a category, because I notice I have, I'm binning these into categories. So I can do a select by attributes. This time I want to choose states, and I want to select from states where the subregion is equal to, and I'm going to click my unique values, and I wanted to do New England. I guess that was the NE. And I'm just going to apply that. And so there's my selection. If I look at my attribute table, it tells me there were 6 out of the 51. So now I know there were 6 states that have been identified in that region. So again, I can get the total population of the Hispanic people in that state. So one state only has 5,000, another state has 400,000, and then there's the total. So it gives me. The vertical coordinate, I'm not sure. Somebody asked about what is the vertical coordinate.
In other words, it's 33221110.
3322110. Oh, this? I don't know what that is either. The frequency distribution? I'm not sure what that is. Good question, and I don't have an answer for that. I can look at that and get back to you. I just mostly look at this.
So possibly 3 units of that population at the bottom?
I don't know. I'll take a look and find out what that is. I love these new questions that I've never had before. So if I hit the clear, that removes my selection. So, but the key here is to don't type in your own equal sign or your own greater than sign. Use the ones that are in the query tool. Okay, so there we go, subregions that we just did, and if I use Montana or the mountain subregion, this is what I would get. So I wanted to show you one of the reasons so we're selecting from volcanoes where known eruptions is greater than, and because it's a number, I can just type in an 8. Okay, if this were a text, if I wanted to find the time code equals, I would have to type in a double quote D3 end double quote. So anything that's in a text, I have to enter those quotes. But because I want to look at a number, I could type that in myself, or go ahead and select it from here. So I'm going to say greater than 8. So there they are. I'm looking at my attribute table, and there's 22 that are greater than 8. So what if I want to make a map with just these 22 volcanoes on it? So now that they're selected, I can go to my data and export them. And this will only export the ones that are selected. Now, this is going to a folder I set up on the desktop called Odd Shape Files. And if this were set to feature class, it wouldn't let me set this because I haven't set up a feature class structure. So if I get an error message here, I need to make sure I save the type as a shape file. And I'm going to call this, well, let's call this 8 plus, right? 8 plus, because I know it's 8 plus magnitude volcano. Okay, does that work? No, it doesn't. Oh, if it works, I'm going to be so embarrassed. That should not work. Because I started with a number. That should have blown up. So sometimes it will work apparently, sometimes not. I was trying to do this really clever demo of not doing that. Yeah, usually you'll get an error code, so I don't know, maybe this is something they've fixed, but I wouldn't do that. I'm going to unselect the old volcanoes and turn them off, and now I have those 8 volcanoes, and now if I wanted to make a quantitative map, I could do this by their by the known eruptions, right? So I've really simplified my data set. So I took a subset. We're going to do a lot of subsets next week.
Does that include the active stuff in Hawaii?
I do not know. Oh yeah, there you go. It does include the active stuff in Hawaii and some in Alaska, right? Okay. So what would the process summary look like for this? Okay, so if I have to, do my selection and then export it, I have to know what type I want to export it to. And so the process summary, and this is what's really important, the process summary would be I selected from volcanoes, known eruptions greater than 8, my output. Where did I put it? And this will slow you down so that you put it in a folder where you can find it again. And then what did you name it? Because what happens is students will try it the first time and they'll say, oh, that's not enough. I want to do eruptions greater than 6. Oh, wait, that's too many. I'm going to do eruptions maybe only greater than 12. And so what they'll name them is eruption 1, good eruption, better eruption, final eruption. And it's hard to track, right? What was that one? What did that include? And for this little bit of subsetting, it's not a big deal, but it's just bad form. So you would want to document what your parameter was and then what your output name was. And on a test, if you start a name with a number, it will be counted wrong, even if it works, apparently. So you'll know that. Okay. Where did that other thing go? Oh, my gosh. Oh, it didn't save. Bummer. All right, we'll do it here. Again, kind of refer to this about not using spaces in your names. It's even a bad idea to use it in your flash drive name. Sometimes when you're working with raster data, it won't go back that far. So make sure you take a look at that. No special characters. The only one that works is an underscore. And then where's my data? Okay, so there's 3 possible scenarios. One is that your folder's zipped. Right? Is the data you're trying to connect to zipped up? If it is, you're going to get those red exclamation points. Do you actually have the data? Did you put the MXD on the flash drive, but you didn't bring the data folder? That happens all the time, right? So it's not, if it can't find the data, it's not making a map. And the other idea is to store relative path names, or in the case of today's lab, did somebody change the name of the data folder? And now the link is broken. So that's what we're going to talk about in this lab today.